cloudy Sunday morning, headed to work. Peaceful music driving with a full stomach. Hakeem made it to work and began looking for parking. The venue was a narrow back street where most delivery drivers and workers passed through. But due to the event that day, parking wasn't as present. Hakeem drove down the street once to check for parking. He found a park but with a slight walk to the venue. At first, Hakeem was just going to settle for that parking space, but he decided to do one last week. He drove down the street slowly, once more searching. Unfortunately, he didn't find any that were close to the venue, so he began to make a U-turn on the street and turn around. However, this time there was a cop behind him that he didn't notice. As Hakeem began to turn around, he heard a voice from outside. Naturally, scoping his surroundings, he checked the environment to see if the voice was speaking for him. Sure enough, it was. "Your turn signal doesn't work?" the cop asked sarcastically. Hakeem was actually confused as he did not know what he did wrong. "I'm just trying to park and get to work," Hakeem said. The officer thought Hakeem was getting smart, so he told him to pull over. The officer walked over to Hakeem's car and asked for his driver's license and registration and insurance. Hakeem handed him his wallet. "Take the license out," the officer said. Hakeem took his license out and gave it to him with no problem. The officer walked away and came back very short moments later and told Hakeem to have a nice day. Hakeem wasn't so happy about this inconvenience, and while the officer was walking back to his car, he then pushed on his brake in a threatening way as if he was going to run over the police officer. "Oh, you're going to run me over now?" the officer said. Hakeem then drove off and continued his search on finding a park to head into work. But just when things seemed to be over and done, Hakeem began looking for his wallet. It only took a few moments for Hakeem to notice that the officer did not give him his wallet back. This stressed Hakeem out since all of his credit cards and debit cards were in his wallet. He tried to check if the officer was still around the area, but the coast was clear without an officer in sight. This annoyed him extremely, but he went into his mobile bank apps and locked all of his cards temporarily until the wallet was back in his presence. Later that day after work, Hakeem began driving home thinking how inconvenient the day had been. On his way home, he noticed someone reaching into a car window that was cracked open. Assuming this person owned the car, Hakeem didn't question it, but he drove slower to examine just in case. He then noticed a police car parked down the block, then back at the person. The person had on his uniform. Hakeem just didn't notice it first. It was a police officer, and he was giving out a ticket on that car. Hakeem then pulled over to investigate. As he walked to the officer, he noticed he began to fiddle with what was in his hand and hide it rather quickly. "Excuse me, officer," Hakeem said. "How's it going, kid?" the officer said. They both made eye contact and remembered each other. "Weren't you the cop from earlier?" Hakeem asked. "Yes, that was me." "You using your turn signals now?" the officer said sarcastically. "Yes, I am." "What are you doing?" Hakeem asked. "Doing the city's jobs and catching illegal parked vehicles, the usual," the cop said. "Do tickets involve going into people's windows?" Hakeem quickly questioned the officer. "Huh?" the officer said. "I saw you go into that window. What did you get?" Hakeem asked. The police officer began to get uncomfortable. "Look, kid, I suggest you go home. It's getting dark," said the officer. But Hakeem didn't give up. "Do you still have my wallet?" Hakeem asked. "Yeah, kid, just go now," the officer said as he then pulled out Hakeem's wallet. But as he pulled out Hakeem's wallet, the bag of drugs that were stuffed in his pocket came out with exposing the officer. The officer looked embarrassed. He then put out his personal wallet and gave Hakeem $500 in cash to to never speak about this, and he didn't say anything. Hakeem took the money and walked away. But little did the officer know, Hakeem had already written the officer's name down. There's no telling if he'll ever report the officer, but it was a win-win situation for Hakeem's inconvenient morning to end the day.